Capitol Records couldn't wait to issue their much-anticipated follow-up to the phenomenally popular I Wanna Hold Your Hand. Many other record labels, like VJ and MGM, released singles by February 1964, attempting to cash in on the success of the Beatles, for which they had recently obtained exclusive rights in the US. Despite being limited to that label, their Canadian counterpart, Capitol of Canada, was making waves in America with releases like Roll Over Beethoven, which was even being considered for the follow-up single. Producer George Martin stepped in to express his ideas to Capitol Records as soon as he learned about this, feeling that Roll Over Beethoven did not accurately capture the Beatles' current sound. Martin informed Capitol that it would be well worth waiting just a few short weeks for the tapes of two new songs, You Can't Do That and Can't Buy Me Love. The Beatles did a run of 18 days of 2 shows a night at the Olympia Theatre in Paris from January 16 to February 4, 1964. They slept at the opulent George V Hotel after the demanding performance schedule. This song was written on a piano in the George V Hotel in Paris, Paul says. The hotel was near the Champs-Elysees, and we had suites big enough to have a piano brought up. The idea is that all these material possessions are well and good, but money can't buy you what you really need. The irony here is that just before Paris, we've been in Florida, where if not love, money certainly could buy you a lot of what you wanted. But the premise stands, I think. Money can't buy you a happy family or friends you can trust. Can't Buy Me Love is my attempt to try in a bluesy mode. It was a very hooky song. Actually, the song was written exclusively for A Hard Day's Night soundtrack. While staying at the George V Hotel, Paul also penned One and One is Two, which was given to the Strangers. Regarding John's contribution to the song, he said in '72, "John and Paul, but mainly Paul." But in 1980 he said, "That's Paul completely. Maybe I had something to do with the chorus, but I don't know. I always considered it his song. We recorded it in France as I recall," Paul remembers. "I went over to the Odeon in Paris. I recorded it over there." What Paul was referring to was the EMI Pathé Marconi Studios in Paris, where they met on January 29, 1964, for the only recording session of their career outside of London. The intention of this late morning or afternoon session was to record German-language versions of 2 of their previous hit songs, namely I Wanna Hold Your Hand and She Loves You. Having accomplished this, they had approximately an hour of studio time left, so they jumped into something they were really excited about, Can't Buy Me Love. To get a good version of the song down and ready for overdubs, only 4 takes were needed. That's when George Martin took a happy song and made it better. "I thought that we really needed a tag for the song's ending, and a tag for the beginning, a kind of intro," George Martin explained. "So I took the first few lines of the chorus and changed the ending, and said, let's just have these lines, and by altering the end of the second phrase, we can get back into the verse pretty quickly. And they said, that's not a bad idea, we'll do it that way." Removing John and George's background vocals during the verses was another improvement. George Harrison did a guitar solo for this take, but it was thought to be poor and deserving of an overdub. Having spent most of February touring America, the Beatles' next recording opportunity came on February 25th. On this day, they went to EMI Studio 2 to do some overdubs. Paul recorded his vocals twice, while Ringo added more percussion over the top of the first take. Then, George recorded a new guitar solo again, but there was a small issue. George explains, "We took the tapes back to England to do some work on them. I once read something that tries to analyze Can't Buy Me Love, talking about the double-track guitar, and saying that it's not very good because you can hear the original one. Then there's the phantom drummer aspect of this track, which we'll clarify quickly. In the Complete Beatles Chronicle by Mark Lewison, an interesting finding about this mixing session is revealed. An intriguing document that was discovered in EMI in 1991 suggests that in relation to Can't Buy Me Love, a drummer took part in this session. This can only imply that there was an overdub from someone other than Ringo." Lewison continues, "He was paid a musicians union session fee, but his name was not detailed on the document. This answers one question that has long puzzled fans. why the drumming on this song's stereo mix is slightly different from the mono mix. But it also raises a new question regarding the drummer's identity. Ringo's Hard Day's Night shooting schedule would seem to suggest that he had little, if any, opportunity to visit EMI on this day. Jeff Emmerich's book, Here, There and Everywhere, sheds some light that reveals the identity of this mysterious drummer. Perhaps because it had been spooled incorrectly, the tape had a ripple in it, resulting in the loss of treble on Ringo's hi-hat cymbal. There was tremendous time pressure to get the track mixed and delivered to the pressing plant, and because of touring commitments, the Beatles themselves were unavailable, so George and Norman took it upon themselves to make a little artistic adjustment. As I eagerly moved into the engineer's seat for the first time, Norman headed down into the studio to overdub a hastily set up hi-hat onto a few bars of the song, while I recorded him, simultaneously doing a 2-track to 2-track dub. Thanks to Norman Smith's considerable skills as a drummer, the repair was made quickly and seamlessly, and I doubt even the Beatles themselves ever realized that their performance had been augmented. Dick Lester knew exactly how big of an impression Can't Buy Me Love would make. In 1980, John said, "I wrote I'll Cry Instead for A Hard Day's Night, but Dick Lester didn't even want it. He resurrected Can't Buy Me Love for that sequence instead." On March 28th, Can't Buy Me Love debuted at number 27 on the Billboard Hot 100, but the following week it shot straight to the top. Since no artist had ever gone straight from outside the top 20 to number 1 on the charts previously, this broke the record for the largest jump ever. This record stood for 38 years. Can't Buy Me Love broke yet another record by becoming the Beatles' third consecutive number 1 song after I Wanna Hold Your Hand and She Loves You.
And when you write music, which you do a great deal with John Lennon and so on, you write it very much and marvellously in the current idiom. Do you feel that later on, when you move into another period, say in 5 years' time, you'll be writing in the same idiom or different? Will you change with the times?
Well, I think the point is that the tunes that we write aren't in any idiom. Idiot. They are. It's just, I think it's just the arrangements, like the arrangements of today. For instance, From Me to You, you know, it could be done as a sort of old ragtime tune, especially the middle eight. And so, you know, we're not writing the tunes in any particular idiom. So, in fact, in 5 years' time, we may arrange the tunes differently, but we probably write the same old rubbish.
And how do you judge a good song when you've written it? By what?
By us liking it. You know, John and I, if we like it, then we think it's a good one. It's a combination of liking it and what is commercial, what we think other people are like.
Can it be a good song if you like it and nobody was to buy it? That hasn't happened yet. But...
Well, it always is for us. If we like it, in fact, you know, we don't like bad songs. That's all there is to it.
At first, you're just an ordinary Joe rocking around trying to make a living. Then you get famous, you get your first hit, and people ask you for your autograph, and you love it. There's nothing you want more than to do any amount of autographs. You know, you want them, I'll do them. Right. And you love it. That kind of wears off after about 3 or 4 years. You just suddenly start to think, wait a minute, what am I bloody signing for you for? You know, so. And I've come through another phase now, just thinking, oh yeah, it's okay again. So I've been like in and out of that phase. And fame's the same thing. I remember thinking at one time that I've come to some kind of point of no return, where no matter even now if I say I don't want to be famous anymore, I'll be like Bridget Bardot, where she'd be a recluse, but still very famous, or Charlie Chaplin. They want to get away from it. And I remember thinking, oh, well, that's no use, because, you know, they're going to be after me even more. So those kind of things do come in. I think it's a very weird thing, fame. The interesting thing for me is that the only people who can ever write about it or ever get near to even explaining it most often don't want to, because it's the people who are famous themselves rather than the analysts or the commentators on it. Because the commentators can't quite get behind that mask until they're famous commentators, and even then it's still not the same. It's still a different thing. So there is a very weird kind of double-edged sword to fame.